Bag, I want the bag. Work my way from a garden to a track. Flip it from a track to a plot full of acres. Do it for the farmers and the producers and the makers. What we even here for? Occasionally I ask it. I know it's more than struggling, anticipating the casket. Reap what we sow, trying to fill up my basket. Life's a plantation, I self-law and master. Over the plot I've been granted on this planet. Now it's slanted, cause the chosen been supplanted. But if you overstand it, it was spoken. Fractured, but we ain't broken. Even though some would rather play the role of token, we growing. Black through the essence of our presence. We carry the blood of gods, we carry the mind of peasants. Rich black gardens, future look more like Eden. Multiply seeds like the seed banks in Sweden. Rep my planners on plan according to season. B1 code, switching it up is treason. Black power, family what we eat. Either we get fed or we feed. B1AG.
What's growing on? What's growing on? What is growing on? Welcome to B1AG Daily Bread Podcast. I'm John Henry Harris, and we also have Farmer Brian EMC. Here at B1AG, we focus on Black agriculture as it pertains to agricultural production, education, marketing, health, food, nutrition, and economics, all for the Black family and for the Black community. Welcome Black to the garden. Now, there's a lot of the farmland. We've always talked about how Bill Gates is buying up a lot of the farmland in the United States. Matter of fact, he's bought over almost 250,000 acres of the prime American farmland in this country. But there's also another entity or entities that are buying up the topsoil and farmland in America, and that's China being the main culprit. And here at B1AG today, we're going to talk about this trend of China buying up American topsoil and our farmland, as well as other countries that are making major investments into American farmland, which is actually pushing a lot of mid-level and small-level farmers out of the economy in total. So that's what today. That's what we're going to deep dive into. Is should we be concerned about China buying up American farmland? And also, before we get started, hey, we need to like, share, and subscribe. We need to grow this conversation. Our people need to stay on top of what is going on, what is growing on with our food and our food system. So for all those that are watching live right now, go ahead, like, share, and subscribe. Let's grow this conversation. Let's make it bigger, and let's make sure that our people are aware of what's growing on with our food. So should we be concerned about China buying up American farmland? Farmer Brown, what say you?
First, I'd just like to say peace to the B1 family. Hope everybody's doing well. Grand Rising fam. So, bro, what if you went to go visit your grandmother, your grandfather? You went to visit the house and you saw somebody in there from another neighborhood renting out or selling their furniture, renting out your grandmother's room, the sacred room where all your family used to gather, lay up under grandmother, during holidays. Somebody's renting out the kitchen to somebody else in another neighborhood. How would that make you feel? When we have this B1 conversation, we really try to focus our conversation around how all of these dynamics affect the melanated family, not just on the social level, but specifically our food system. Obviously, to get food, you have to produce it. To produce the food, you need land to produce it. For many of us, this is our home. This is grandmother's house. This is great grandmother's house. And so what we see is this dynamic of the land getting sold to other people. Here at B1AG, we're not here to disparage anybody in this grand monopoly game of world domination. I think everybody is going to, what is it? The first law is self-preservation. And so as we have this conversation, we want to frame it around what is the best way for us to preserve ourselves, not just as primary stakeholders in this land, but as a group of people that want to survive and thrive in the decades and centuries to come. So I look forward to deep diving into this conversation.
Now, one article I want to reference is Politico, Politico.com. They have an article saying that China is buying up American farms and Washington wants to crack down. This is actually one of the few items where they're getting bipartisan support. Both Democrats and Republicans are pushing for the country to stop allowing foreign nationals to purchase American farm operations, but more importantly, they're receiving taxpayer subsidies while doing so. So not only are these foreign countries like China and Saudi Arabia, they're putting all this money into buying up American farm operations, they're receiving taxpayer subsidies. We're paying for it. We're actually financing it to a certain extent. The article reads, the push to drain China's influence from the U.S. economy has reached America's farm country, as congressional lawmakers from both parties are looking at measures to crack down on foreign purchases of prime agricultural real estate. House lawmakers recently advanced legislation to that effect, warning that China's presence in the American food system poses a national security risk. And key Senate lawmakers have already shown interest in efforts to keep American farms in American hands.
You ever watch Scooby-Doo Red Herring? So this is an issue. We know China owns 5 of the major ports, specifically on the West Coast, right? And I think this is also a learning lesson for the B1 family. What are the things that China is doing to gain this dominance right around the world? And it's really inserting themselves into the food system, specifically through the distribution networks. Like I said, this will be the ports and then buying up the farmland. But when we think about this concept of red herring, and so Canadian investors hold the largest share of American farmland. We know there's 900 million acres total of American farmland. And I'm glad you put this up. Melanated families are losing 30,000 acres a year, while at the same time, Canadian investors hold the largest share at 29%, with the Netherlands, Italy, Germany, and the United Kingdom collectively owning another 33%. The remaining 38% is held by entities from almost 100 other countries. I encourage the family to fact check us. You know, we're not Chicken Little saying the sky's falling. This just is what it is. Like I said, when you value something, you tend to protect it. One of the reasons we try to advocate for really supporting Black farmers, figuring out how we can reassert ourselves in this industry, because agriculture is dependent upon land. Land is obviously the main component of any sort of agricultural operation. We do promote being able to grow in urban areas through urban gardening. This is why we do the how you grow your own healthyblackfood.com. But when we look at the broader landscape of agriculture, what happens when all the land is bought? Like you said at the beginning, bro. Okay, so you have people like Bill Gates. I guess on his passport, he does have American. And so, yeah, you know, I'm going to buy 260 some thousand acres of prime farmland because I'm American. But then we have that discussion about, okay, now what are you trying to do with this? Are you trying to spray it with a special sauce? And so I think these are conversations we really need to have, not just for the sake of, just a conversation, but what are the action items we can take behind this? Just reiterating the statistic you just put up. And so we know every year melanated families are losing 30,000 acres a year. And so we have to look at this trend. This neighbor from another neighborhood is coming in buying more stake of grandmother's house, of grandfather's house that they worked hard for. They sweat for. They didn't get the same help that everybody else got to build that house. Yet every year they're losing 30,000, we'll say inches if you want to put it in the scale of a house. They're losing 30,000 inches a year, whereas you got these, we'll say economic colonizers coming in, gaining more, buying more. And so as a melanated family, how bad do we want to protect grandmother's house?
And for me, more importantly, how bad do you want to eat? How bad do you want to have control of what you can eat? And how bad do you want to control the amount you're able to eat? Because the more and more people, as our food system is getting dispersed by countries all over the world, and again, self-preservation is the law. Do you think that they're going to be just over generous about making sure that we have something to eat too?
China's stake in a $1 trillion industry in North America. Let's put this into perspective here. You don't have to be a mathematician to understand this. By the start of 2020, China owners controlled about 192,000 agricultural acres in the U.S., worth $1.9 billion. And this is land used for farming, ranching, and forestry. This is from the USDA. Fact check us. I wish we was wrong. In this same time span, so black sales in agriculture represented 0.2% of this $1 trillion industry. Melanated farmers only operated 0.4% of U.S. farmland. Meaning if I'm operating, it means I'm generating revenue, but the revenue being generated is literally 0.2%. And so, when we're talking about this thing of land protecting grandmother's house, it's one thing, the legacy of, hey, we want to keep this within our family, within our lineage, within our tribe. But then we understand that there's a value here. There's an intrinsic value in this home, whether you're looking at the legacy aspect of it or the fiat. When we think about being able to. Absolutely, brother. Absolutely. And this is something, we have this conversation. It's easy to talk through screens, but this is something that has to be addressed. Because every day that we don't talk about this, and not just talk about it, but figure out ways individually, as communities, as groups, every day we don't figure out, now how can we support some of the people who are in this fight? This fight isn't for everybody. Everybody's not a producer. Everybody's not a farmer. But everybody within the melanated community that has to eat has something that can be added to not only expand this conversation, but also expand support bases. Because these farmers, we think about the elder John Boyd Jr., Shirley Sherrod. We've had a lot of advocates out here, screaming at the top of the hill about the problem that a lot of the melanated farmers are facing. But if you're only talking to the people in the ag community, you're preaching to the choir. They already know about it. One of the purposes of B1AG is, how do we reach more people? It might be 10 people we reach that might have a megaphone that can reach a couple hundred other people, if they understand the dynamic of what's going on. But at this trend of us losing land and everybody else buying this land, once again, what does this look like for this broader house? The sister Vicky Dillard touched upon this the other day, this concept of model minorities, right? We know it did with warp speed. We saw that the Congress had passed a act protecting those from the other side of the ocean. Oh, y'all are being discriminated against. There's these hate crimes being put onto these groups of people who's buying up all of our land, right? And like I said, we're not here to disparage, more so than putting things in perspective. But then the sister Vicky Dillard was talking about it was a brothel run by this model minority group. Here in Kentucky, where I'm at right now, literally just as we were preparing for the show, there was an article that came up. There was a supermarket. It was a Hispanic supermarket. That's something else we've talked about here at B1AG. How do we make sure we have supermarkets and venues for our producers to sell their food? And so they found that this supermarket had been storing fentanyl in produce boxes that had been shipped on trucks from below the border. And so once again, what people got going on, that's what they have going on. But these are the model minorities that we're told y'all ain't doing good enough. Y'all, even though y'all built the wealth of this land, even though your ancestors earned every brick of that house that's getting sold away, y'all aren't the model minorities. Y'all need to be better. Y'all need to be like the people who got these brothels. Y'all need to be like the people whose your taxpayer dollars are, giving them tax incentives to come take pieces of grandmother's house. So saying that to say, how do we learn from what we see going on around us? We see that there is definitely it is incentivized for people to seize upon the networks, how people receive food, whether we're talking about the land, whether we're talking about the ports where you're receiving the imported food from, whether you're talking about the stores where the food is distributed from. When we think about seeds and seed banks, and so we know the large farmland owner, Billy Goat Gates, they invested $8 million in a seed bank in Sweden. That wasn't an $8 million seed bank here in what we call Turtle Island, North America. So once again, how do we learn from what these people have going on and apply it to a melanated community for a codified, localized food system that is sourced by the melanated farmers who aren't getting help, who aren't getting debt relief, who aren't allowed into your Kroger's and Costco's and Whole Foods. These are things that we can do. Am I saying that this is just, okay, we get codified and overnight we solve this problem? Absolutely not. But we can't afford to let another minute go by that we don't at least have this on the table of things we discuss when we're thinking about social justice, when we're thinking about changing our place at this proverbial table. And, ideally, we would just get to the work of building our own table.
Well, one thing we have definitely seen is that social justice and food security, they go hand in hand. And even the USDA and these other major, food organizations, they understand and are promoting small scale, localized food production. And that equals the food security. Now, we have to look towards, cities like Detroit, Chicago, where urban farming is becoming a catalyst for not only food production and food security, but also for urban renewal. So conventional farmland, we're losing land, other countries are buying land. So urban farming is a practical answer to mitigate this problem of these countries buying up American farmland and topsoil. What does that look like? John Henry, what does that look like? Well, let me show you some pictures of exactly what urban farming looks like. Using rooftops, growing on rooftops of these buildings. This is going to have to become more prevalent across this country in our major cities. We don't have a lot of land necessarily to grow food with. They're buying it all up. We don't have a lot of access. So we need to use what we have. That is a power that our people have always had, making the most out of the least. And not only just making the most out of the least, we do it so well that the other people have to copy it. It's like, dang, that's a great idea. Even the food program that was started by the Black Panthers was adopted by, the school systems across this country. We have to be innovative, use what little we have to produce what we need, and that's food security. Here's another picture, all these vacant lots and dilapidated areas that we live in. Hey, make them green spaces. Put in your high tunnels, your greenhouses. Grow food right there in the middle of the hood. That's where the people that need the food, that's where they are. They're in these urban sprawls, these areas that are in decline. We can bring it back with agriculture. This is what small scale localized food production looks like. Putting up your high tunnels, your caterpillar tunnels, to where you can grow year round in the hood, in the city. Because conventional farming, it's just becoming less and less accessible to our people for conventional farming. And then the farmers that we do have that do have a lot of land and are practicing commercial farming in a conventional way, they're still being locked out of these large subsidies and contracts. All I'm saying is if we don't want to starve, we're going to have to grow our food. Again, this is a building where you see it's boarded up, but the people in that community have taken it upon themselves. Hey, y'all can board up all these buildings, but we're still going to grow food. And as a side caveat to urban farming, did y'all know, there's a thing called eminent domain. And this is where your local city or state can come and actually take your property by claiming eminent domain, saying that they need this property for the greater good. However, what spaces are protected from eminent domain? Spaces that grow food. So this land grab that is that's happening against our people and the land that we do own can easily be mitigated simply by growing food on. They can't come take it. I have a cousin Tanya Washington, Professor Tanya Washington down in Atlanta. She's a law professor at Georgia State University. She's been fighting to keep her home for the last 10 years as the city of Atlanta has decimated this all-Black community in Atlanta called People's Town. You know, they've taken all the homes except for 2. And that's my cousin's home, and then there's another family there. They're the only 2 homes in this original community, it's a Black community left. And they took the homes using eminent domain, saying that it was a flood risk. However, if it was such a flood risk, it didn't stop them from gentrifying that area and moving in people of other colors. And now even the Atlanta Falcons, they want the land, you know, to build facilities on it. But they took it from the people that own it. Building your own food system, growing in urban areas is going to be a way that we can feed ourselves, preserve whatever we have left, and again, thrive into the future and not just survive. Because when it comes to conventional farming, the way they're doing things, China's a superpower. They are right now the number one superpower in this world, and they're buying everything up.
Bruh, the whole reason we were doing our research, figuring out what we wanted to talk about today. So when we talk about urban gardening, this is how deep the rabbit hole goes, family. So obviously, to do an urban garden, if you're in an apartment complex or an area where you have distressed properties, you need to bring soil in, right? Either you're going to create your own potting soil, or you're going to have to bring some good fertile topsoil in. China is buying up this land. Chinese are stripping U.S. topsoil for export, meaning I'm going to buy this farmland from y'all just so I can strip it of the nutritious topsoil to send to China, because we know 40% of China's agricultural land has been stripped. It's been overused. Why was it overused? Because they've been selling to everybody else around the world. Business. Once again, this grand game of monopoly. And so instead of us, going local, instead of us, using more sustainable practice, no, us as China, because we see that the powers that shouldn't be in North America are willing to sell every bit of the granny's house to anybody that's going to buy it. And so they're getting this land literally to not only grow their own food on it, but also to export the topsoil. Did you know that the U.S. actually imports soil? Because we're selling away our good soil, we're importing lesser quality soil. U.S. farmers imported 27,400,000 metric tons of lesser grade topsoil from Canada and Central America. This was in 2019. And so if we understand this concept of, okay, there's obviously a higher strain on this food system, and we think of shipping disruptions, this dynamic has only increased where there's a bigger demand for this topsoil, right? And so once again, okay, we want to grow in urban areas. This is why when we have this conversation, okay, maybe everybody's not a green thumb, but maybe you're able to go in with a group of people to make sure you're protecting the area. Just like you're saying, as a way of fighting gentrification. Okay, we're growing food here. Well, what do we need to grow food here? We're going to need some topsoil. So maybe we're working with a group of people who just came together, cooperatively bought some space. Same way China, follow the money. What is the money doing? They're buying space to utilize the natural resources from that space. Maybe we use a percentage of it out here in the rural area. Maybe we work with some of the people with CDLs and got access to trucks to import some of this topsoil in the cities, the urban areas where it's needed to grow. Well, we're supplementing people's diets. We minimize the distance from having to ship produce or meat from the rural area to the city. These are conversations we're going to have because we see entities around the world are already, they're carving up. They've already carved up. I don't know if you ever saw that image of Africa. It was an old image, but it showed the Belgians and all the different ethnicities cutting Africa up. That same image exists today. When we think about who has voice, when we think about legislation, when we think about, okay, we want to get some laws passed in our favor. Unfortunately, we have a governing body that is going to follow the money. And so let's put this to scale. Take all emotions out of it. who is contributing more in the U.S. agricultural economy, between the melanated people who built it, who are asking for reparations, or people from around the world who's spending money?
And not only are they spending money, the government is giving them taxpayer subsidies to strip our land away.
Does that sound like the actions of somebody who's going to repair a group that's been damaged? Like at what point in this relationship does it turn into, okay, I've stripped everything away, I've sold everything, now I'll give you reparations? Leaves can be used in compost. Leaves can be used in compost. Let's get into science real quick. So that's a good question, and I'm glad you asked that. So we really got to start thinking practical. When we talk about this topsoil, it's the organic layer. Soil has different layers. And so leaves represent organic matter. If you have a leaf and you crush it, that's only going to be so much. So yeah, you need a lot of leaves. To just spread leaves out on a garden or your growing space, you're going to need a lot more. This is when you throw in your produce or your fruits and vegetables that you don't eat, your banana peels, fish, meat that you don't use. And we need to get large scale compost bins going in all of these urban communities that we're talking about. We have to have a collective effort of people, like instead of throwing your organic waste into your garbage can, okay, maybe we got teams of young men or women that go around with a truck that the community went in on together to like, okay, because we know we're going to have to start amending our own soil to grow our own food, we're going to invest in trucks to go pick up, some of the waste that can be composted in an area that we purchased a quarter acre where we just have these large compost bins in any given community. Instead of people putting their leaves in the bag, sending them to somewhere because somebody's making a bag off of those leaves. No, we're codified and we understand we're going to make use out of these leaves to build this compost, to then rebuild these garden beds that are going to be strategically placed amongst our community. So that's a very good question. And these are the very specific strategies that we're going to have to employ when we're talking about food security, and not just food security. I tend to believe that once the melanated mind gets a minimal context to how deep this rabbit hole goes into how food is produced and where it and the power it has and what kind of power you have, to that degree we master it. We become the LeBron James of food production. We become the LeBron James of localized food production. And we feed what we need for our families and we sell the surplus. That's the name of the game. That's what our ancestors did long ago. And then we got convinced by the colonizers that there was a better way to do business. And so this is our time to revisit and get black to the garden. Appreciate that.
Should we be concerned about China buying up American farmland? Yes. And not just China, but all these other countries. We should be very hundreds of countries buying up all of our farmland, buying our topsoil. We have to employ these urban farming tactics to make sure that we can eat. This is a threat. It's not even just a threat for the Black community. It's a threat for all American communities, actually. But if it's a threat for all, please know that it's even more of a threat for us. And we're not paying attention to it. This conversation is not big enough yet. There's not enough action being taken place. We need to reassert ourselves into this ag space, into this agricultural space, into that whole industry. Because nobody's going to feed us or be concerned about feeding us except us. If you know of a Black farmer, get to know one. Get to know them better. Find out ways you can help them out. Find out how you can get involved. I'm going to put in the chat, in the live chat, for those watching live, I'm going to put the link to, to help you get started on trying to find a Black farmer near you. I'm gonna put that link in the chat, y'all, just to help you get started. but we need to look into building our own raised bed gardens, barrel gardens, container gardens, aquaponics, aeroponics. We're going to have to educate ourselves on this. This is why we have healthyblackfood.com to teach you how to grow your own food. This is the seed, planting the seed to help us grow our own food. This is a very big problem. Other countries, we're shipping the majority of our food from outside of the country. And then those countries are coming into our country and buying up all of our farmland and topsoil. What's left? There's not going to be anything left for us to eat but Soylent Green.
We haven't talked about this new step show. We haven't talked about the new step show, and so that's obviously going to affect food security once again. We see that some measures are being taken in Austria, other places in Europe. We see that I think the president of the European Union is like, man, we need to start, forcing some things. Don't let these people go to a grocery store and eat. We want to keep you healthy, but no, you can't go to a store and feed yourself. And so here at B1AG, our thing is if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. If you're producing your own food, then guess what? You can weather whatever might be coming down the pike. And once again, the beauty in that, the optimism is if we can master being able to feed ourselves in such a tumultuous time, imagine what we bring to the table after the smoke settles. Because, nothing lasts forever. I hope the melanated family isn't being, there's this magic going on. There's this magic going on, putting people in this scared mindset. This is a powerful moment for us, family. There's never been this much disruption to where there's no resistance from us doing for self. There's no resistance because these people know to the degree that these melanated people start waking up, we're gonna fall back and watch what they do. And we got the benefit of history to know. Okay, first we're gonna protect what we're doing, and we're gonna put a tax on it this time. This time we know that the Pilgrims didn't come for good reasons. And so we're going to make sure, because we're the mothers and fathers of civilization, we understand, this whole game is about feeding and providing something useful to others. But at the end of the day, you're going to pay us for this time. We're not going to do this for free because we had the lessons of what we see you're doing with grandmother's house now. And so for the young ladies, for the young men now that will be grandfathers, grandmothers later, we're not going to set this house up to be exploited like this. And we're on the precipice of this opportunity right now. The canary is out of the cave, and we see the canary got dust all over it. It ain't a pretty little yellow canary anymore. We see it. The writing's on the wall. You don't have to be literate to understand, like, hey, y'all, the world is changing. Now, what are we willing to do? What are we ready to do as a melanated family, as a group of people who want to eat, who want to get to the next day and thrive going into the next decades and century? What are we willing to do to get black to the garden, get our prints in the mud? Are we ready to start supporting melanated farmers? They don't need our pity. They don't need, likes and shares. Spend some money with them. We're going to, when these phones come out, when the shoes come out, we make sure we're going to find the store that sell them to us. Some of these stores are going to keep you outside for hours in lines waiting to get a pair of shoes that as soon as you walk up the street, get some gum on the bottom of them, they're devalued. There's no outside of somebody saying, hey, you got a nice pair of shoes. There's no value in that, right? But we're going to make sure we find where this is being sold. And so with that same energy, can we find the few melanated farmers who have been the warriors, who have been the soldiers that's been able to keep this small percentage, this 0.4% of arable American land? Are we going to be able to find them? Do you have something for sale? Do you have an initiative? When you think about organizations like National Black Farms of America, for example, BUGS, Black Urban Growers of America, these are organizations that they can use all of the help that they can get, because not only are they actually producing, they're teaching other people. They're creating resources within their communities. This isn't a thing where there's one leader. The code is the leader. The code is we want to eat, not just eat literally, but metaphorically. There are bags within the system of how people eat. Watching China and these hundreds of other countries, we see that, oh, y'all ain't worried about this technology that all of us are buying. Y'all aren't sitting up in front of your screens, trying to be entertained. Y'all are literally buying up the infrastructure to feed the world. And so as the mothers and fathers of civilization, what are we ready to do? Are we ready to compete? Are we ready to get on the court in this grand game?
Here's just a list of some of these black growers, preppers, and organizations that you can find. I encourage you to go back, and if you must, even if you have to press pause on this video just to write some of these down, do that. I try to put as many direct links as possible as I can, but again, this is a moving podcast. Sometimes, hey, you're gonna have to put in a little effort yourself. If that's to go back, rewatch, and press pause, take notes, like, share, and subscribe to Daily Bread Podcast. B1AG Daily Bread Podcast on YouTube. Subscribe. Share it. Let's grow this conversation. We must stay in a growth mind state. There's a lot at stake. They want your steaks grown in a petri dish.
By self-replicating robots. I don't know if you saw that news story. We'll touch on that another time. I know some of the family saw this news story. So there's these self-replicating robots. Dr. Boyce the other day was just talking about how there was a mathematics strategy put into why we're even having this discussion today. And slavery didn't end, this concept of slavery didn't end because there was suddenly this epiphany like, hey, this is a bad way to do business with these melanated people. It wasn't because of that. There was a more technologically advanced way to do it to where we don't need this labor no more. So before I get in reparations, I'll bring somebody else in from somewhere else. Before I get in reparations, let me come up with some new equipment. It don't matter how much land and resources I got to destroy to build this new equipment. Let's get these melanated people out here because we know once the melanated LeBron wakes up, we know what it means in the game. And so now the next move, like I said, I encourage the family to look this up. Self-replicating robots. That sounds very sustainable. That sounds very righteous, right? The writing's on the wall. Peace, sister, peace. Hope everything's going well with you. Of course, they're not sending alerts, but we believe that the people who need to hear it will hear it when it's time to hear it. B1AG, we're a trumpet. We're blowing the trumpet. We're not the only voice. There are a lot of voices out here doing this, and everybody's voice matters, whether you're doing it from a screen, whether you're doing it in your community. There was a brother that reached out yesterday, and I mean, it warmed our heart, brother Nathaniel Lockridge. I don't know if he's on here. He's in Texas, and he was like, man, we played a podcast. Now, everybody I work with, all of us are, codified around we're going to do gardens this year. And this is what this is about, this golden spiral, exponential growth. And everything starts with the seed because we all have power wherever we're at. Whether I'm in an apartment, a duplex, whether I'm in a rural area, whether I'm in the suburbs, wherever I'm at, I can make use of the resources that I have available to me. The shadow ban is real. But once again, that is this concept of the canary in the cave. That is the canary in the cave. We will be reminded of everything ratchet. We will be reminded of everything that distracts us from this grand game of feeding the world. We know that we have an ancestral genetic advantage when it comes to feeding the world. And we have the experience of the past to let us know we need to put a tax on it this time. Put some respect on the name, put some respect on the game.
And speaking of that canary in the cave, that canary in the cave, that's about that canary supposed to, send an alert. Again, we state that the B1AG Daily Bread Podcast, we're blowing this trumpet for food security. Now, that canary in the cave, it's chirping. Chirp, 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 chirp. We're chirping. But it seems like, do you want to wait until that canary falls dead before you pay attention? Do you want to wait until the canary falls dead to pay attention? pay attention and heed. Let's take heed to what's going on. Supply chain disruptions, food shortages, less food, less just products, period, available on your shelves. There's something going on. That bird is chirping. The bird is chirping. Let's stay ahead of the curve, y'all. Let's get these seeds in the ground. Now, yesterday, now. Let's not wait until the stores are completely closed. Let's not wait until they like, well, all the stores are closed. You have to go to these FEMA camps. And we don't have any kind of emergency preparedness teams, cert teams, available that are protecting our best interests. We got to do some things for us, y'all. Nobody's going to save us. They're not going to save us.
Sister, I saw a comment. They're putting up cardboard images to cover up the empty spaces on these shelves. This was a story that came out last week. It was actually a national story. But literally, they're in stores now. Okay, we can't fill this space, so we'll just put up some cardboard boxes because we don't want people panic buying. Either it's because they don't want the customers panic buying, or you got something to hide. But you can't hide a plant growing out of the ground. You can't hide a plant growing out of your containers. And we control that. We have power to do that. We have the power in our hands. Absolutely. And we know those are between 25 to 40 days you can harvest them. Going into what they keep telling us is this dark winter is being resourceful. We know we eat. And so are we putting energy into creating what it is we eat?
And not only this dark winter, as Let's Go Brandon is calling it, the actual almanac is calling this winter a season of shivers. This is supposed to be a prolonged, pretty rough winter. I'm in South Georgia. Luckily, winter it's not that bad. Normally, we have had some winters where we've actually gotten snow, which is very rare. But these very rare occurrences are now becoming more common when it comes to climatic changes. Think about the snowstorm they had in Houston and other parts of Central Texas. Like ice storms, snowstorms. That's crazy. In Texas, we need to be prepared. Be prepared. Stay ready. You don't have to get ready. Stay ready. You don't have to get ready.
What does it say? The devil has but a short time. It seems like somebody's playing a harp somewhere. But I think we got a little bit more rhythm.
You heard that? The best fertilizer is your footprints. That's coming from South Africa.
Prints in the mud. That's the only way to play it. It's a dirty game, but somebody got to play it.
Cherry wallflowers getting ready. Getting their greenhouse up.
Controlling the environment. We know there's a value in controlling the environment. We aren't either, and once again, the sister said we're not excited about winter coming. It's not an excitement. It's the same way as an athlete, like, man, I know the season's coming up, and that means I got to get off the beaches and I got to get back in the gym. But the whole reason I'm getting into this gym is when it's time to get back on that court, I'm effective. And so as a melanated mind, as this brain trusts the melanated people who understand what's going on, oh, wow. As a melanated people that understand what's going on, this is time to work it out. This is time to work it out. This winter should be a wake-up call for us. We saw what happened in Houston. Like bruh is saying, we're seeing all sorts of changes in the weather. And so, you don't have to be a fortune teller or a soothsayer to see that, okay, things are changing. And so, once again, this gives us an excuse to change the way we're looking at it. change our approach. Now, do I go into uncertain times asking people who don't have a clue themselves how to get through these uncertain times, or am I going to codify with like-minded individuals who understand, okay, there's something we can do about this? Setting up a greenhouse, setting up our containers, storing our seeds, making sure we're stocking up on all the information possible, just in case the grid goes down. The sister said Edison power. I keep hearing murmurings of power going down as well. That could be man-made. I've seen stories about meteorites hitting. Who knows what it is? But what we do know is things can drastically change. And whatever this change is, we know that we have to eat. And we know that the power is in our hands to at least be able to feed ourselves, if nothing else. Everything else, okay, we've eaten, we've kept ourselves healthy, we've protected one another. Now, we know the spring will come. If the spring don't come, then there's no use of us talking about it. But I think for the millions of years that Tierra Madre has been here, the spring is always going to come. And so are we preparing? What do they say? Study the ant. The ant is constantly in the motion of preparing. So come wintertime, I'm cool. The squirrel, I got my nuts, I'm cool. So whatever happens outside, I've done my due diligence. I was on code.
If you want information about how you can help get prepared, hit us up at b1aghiphop@gmail.com. We're very responsive. We'll distribute whatever information that we can to help you make sure that you are prepared for not only this winter, but also the ensuing spring, that we are having faith and just confidence that will come. Because we have to get to growing. We have to grow. Sister said she's planning her romaine and extra collards. She's getting prepared. We all need to get prepared. And also, we also need to like, share, and subscribe to push this algorithm. Because here at B1AG, we're going to continue pushing this black algorithm to fight against this algorithm. They don't want us to talk about being food secure. They don't want us to talk about feeding ourselves. They don't want us to talk about being self-sufficient. But we're going to talk about it. And that's our mission, and that's what we're going to continue to do. Push this black algorithm.
Pushing the black algorithm. Ancestors, they mastered the systems. We raising your bosses, no victims. Planting that knowledge curriculum. Blessing the boots with the nutrients. The darker the berry, black Nubian. Dropping receipts like I'm Julian. The streets with that food like Peruvian. Trapping the herbs and the fruits and the veggies. CSA boxes, my package is heavy. Ship across town in the bed of my Chevy. Printing them up, growing hard for that baby. If you stay ready, you ain't gotta scramble. Bet on black farmers and growers, no gamble. Reclaiming our pain cause the game is in shambles. Blessed with that melanin, carry the miracle. Mothers and fathers of civilization. Black to the garden with through cultivation. Building back better through black innovation. B1 community growing the nation. Genetically designed to be the dopest. Stoking that growth mindset. Codified, now we focus. Farming on back on track. Feed the fam, break bread with them. Pushing that B1 algorithm. Now, watch me get them. Watch me get them. Pushing that B1 algorithm. Feed the fam, break bread with them. Pushing that B1 algorithm. Watch me get them. Pushing that B1 algorithm.
So, Farmer Brown, we're going to keep putting this mathematical equation up. Small-scale localized food production equals food security. Learn how to grow your own food at healthyblackfood.com. Sign up. Learn how to grow your own. Make this a family event. Learn how to grow your own food. Each family should have their own family garden. Each community should have their own community gardens outside of their family gardens. And then hopefully between each family and communities, they're making alliances and cooperatives so they can grow and trade food. This is how you make sure that your food's secure. This is how you make sure that no matter what's going on, we all have a seat at this table that we all built. And at the end of the day, if you really want to know something, what do the people need to do, Farmer Brown?
If you really want to know something, context is everything. We have not had an opportunity like this in centuries. Uh, my kids, they know how to they do things when they see that we're busy. When they see mom and dad busy with something, trying to figure something out, there's a mess in the house. That's when they seize upon the moment. Right now, this is our moment. These other people are busy. And we see that their busyness isn't going to equate to feeding melanated families. And so if you really want to know something, let's learn how to grow something.
Let's stay in that growth mindset, people. Let's go into this weekend. Again, I always like to go when I leave my house, whether I leave my house physically or virtually, I like to do so in love. Let's do that. Even in getting prepared, let's get ourselves prepared in love. We don't need to do it in anger. We need to do it in love for ourselves, love for our families, and love for our communities to make sure that we all can eat. I'm John Henry Harris. We have Farmer Brown, the MC. Let's keep growing. Until next time, this is B1AG Daily Bread Podcast. Like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. See you soon. Peace.